The grand ballroom of a five-star hotel in Manhattan shimmered under golden chandeliers, filled with the low hum of elite conversations and the clinking of crystal glasses. Daniel Carter stood near one of the marble pillars, dressed in a clean but modest black security suit, his sharp eyes scanning the room. To most people, he was invisible, just another guard hired to keep things in order. But Daniel had once been far more than that years ago. He served as a military medic, trained to read danger before it fully revealed itself. Now, as a single father raising his 8-year-old son, he worked long shifts to make sure there was food on the table and a future within reach. The event was hosted by one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, Victoria Hayes. Known for her sharp mind and commanding presence, she moved through the crowd with confidence, greeting investors, politicians, and influential figures with effortless charm. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, until Daniel noticed something subtle. His instincts, long buried under routine work, stirred uneasily. Victoria paused mid-conversation, her smile faltering for just a fraction of a second. Most people didn't notice. Daniel did. He watched closely as she reached for a glass of water, her hand trembling slightly, her posture shifted, her shoulders tightening as if she were fighting to stay composed. Daniel straightened, his focus narrowing. Something was wrong moments later as she stepped away from the crowd. Her path brought her closer to where Daniel stood. Her confident stride had weakened. Her breathing was shallow, uneven when she reached him. Her eyes met his nod with authority, but with quiet desperation. She leaned slightly toward him, her voice barely more than a breath.
"Help me," the words were soft,
almost lost in the noise of the room. But they hit Daniel like an alarm. Instantly, everything around him faded into the background. His training surged back to life. He noticed the pallor of her skin, the slight bluish tint near her lips, the way her fingers curled as if losing strength. These weren't signs of simple exhaustion. This was serious. Before anyone else could react, Victoria's knees began to buckle. Daniel stepped forward immediately, catching her just before she collapsed onto the polished floor. Gasps rose from nearby guests, confusion spreading quickly as conversations came to a halt. But Daniel didn't hesitate. His movements were precise, controlled, as if he had rehearsed this moment countless times. "Ma'am." "Stay with me," he said firmly but calmly, lowering her carefully while supporting her head. He checked her pulse, rapid but weakening. Her breathing was strained, each inhale a struggle. Daniel's mind raced through possibilities. Allergic reaction, toxin exposure, sudden medical condition. Whatever it was, time mattered around him. The crowd began to panic, voices overlapping with questions and fear. But Daniel remained steady, his focus locked on the woman in his arms. In that moment, he wasn't just a security guard. He was the medic. He used to be the protector he had always been. And as Victoria's grip on consciousness slipped, Daniel knew one thing with absolute certainty: he couldn't afford to lose her. The moment Victoria Hayes collapsed into his arms, Daniel's voice cut cleanly through the rising panic. "Everyone, step back, give her air," he commanded, his tone firm and controlled. The authority in his voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. People hesitated, then obeyed, forming a loose circle around them. Years ago, Daniel had learned that chaos could kill just as quickly as any injury. Control the scene, control the outcome. He gently laid Victoria on her back, loosening the collar of her dress to ease her breathing. Her chest rose unevenly, each breath shallow and strained. Daniel checked her airway, tilting her head slightly, ensuring nothing obstructed it. Her pulse was fast, too fast, and weak beneath his fingers. He glanced around, call 911. Now he instructed a nearby staff member, locking eyes until the man nodded and rushed off. Victoria's lips parted slightly, her breath catching as if her body was fighting itself. Daniel scanned her quickly for clues. No visible injuries, no signs of trauma. His mind returned to her earlier symptoms: trembling hands, pale skin, sudden weakness. This wasn't random, it pointed to something internal, possibly an allergic reaction or toxin. He had seen similar cases before, though never in a room filled with billionaires and flashing cameras. "Stay with me, Victoria," he said, his voice steady, grounding. He didn't know if she could fully hear him, but sometimes familiarity, even from a stranger, could anchor someone slipping away. Her eyes fluttered weakly, barely focused. That was enough. She was still fighting. A woman from the crowd stepped forward nervously. "I am a nurse," she said. Daniel nodded, not taking his focus off Victoria. Good, watch her breathing. Tell me if it changes. He welcomed the help but remained in charge, coordinating without hesitation. Together they monitored her condition, counting breaths, watching for any sudden shifts. The ballroom, once filled with elegant chatter, had turned into a tense, silent space broken only by urgent whispers and the distant sound of sirens growing closer. Security staff tried to keep guests calm, but all eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding on the floor. Some people pulled out their phones, but one sharp glance from Daniel stopped most of them. This wasn't a spectacle, it was a life hanging in balance. Victoria's breathing hit a dangerous pause just a second too long. Daniel leaned closer, ready to act if necessary. Then she gasped, pulling in air sharply. Relief flickered across his face, but only briefly. He stayed alert, every second critical. He adjusted her position slightly, keeping her stable, minimizing any risk within minutes. Paramedics rushed into the ballroom, their equipment in hand. Daniel immediately gave a clear, concise report, female mid-40s. Sudden onset, weakness, tremors, shallow breathing, rapid pulse. Possible allergic reaction or poisoning. She's responsive but fading. His words were precise, efficient, exactly what they needed. The lead paramedic nodded, impressed by the accuracy. You medical, he asked quickly while preparing an IV line. Former military medic Daniel replied, stepping back, just enough to give them space, but staying close in case they needed assistance. They worked swiftly, administering oxygen and medication. Within moments, Victoria's breathing began to stabilize slightly. The tension in the room eased, replaced by cautious hope. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, her hand moved weakly, brushing against Daniel's sleeve for a brief second. As if acknowledging him, the paramedic looked back at Daniel. You saved her time, that made the difference. Daniel exhaled slowly, the adrenaline finally beginning to fade. Around him, the crowd buzzed with shock and relief, but he barely noticed. For him it was simple, someone needed help, and he had answered.